Hey guys, this is Jonathan Thompson here for Judge Timing. Just want to give you guys an update on the status on the full timing system. I know some of you have the finish line judge boards or the starting line judge boards and are constantly asking about what the status is on the development of the full timing system. And this is just give you a little bit of an update on exactly where we're at with it. We have been running it throughout the 2023 season at our local track, and coming into 2024, we are getting much closer to having a product that is going to be ready for distribution. But this is just kind of an update of where we're at as far as the software goes. Down to my computer here. This is our track, or a photo of our track on the Judge Timing website. As you can see, we've got a full-size Christmas tree that runs off of the full timing system. And then you see a small TV on a stand here, but now we have about mid-track a 75-inch TV that acts as our scoreboard. So I'll show you here on my computer. Actually, let me just take a step back. This is the components that I'm going to be using for testing. I do have an automated testing set up here. Let's see about getting the software going so you can see what we've got here. So at the moment, we are on version 0.6.3.1, as you can see there. And I'll just run through some of the functionality. As you can see, I don't know how easy it's going to be to read this, so I'm just going to have to kind of take the camera in. So we'll kind of go from left to right here. As you can see, it does show times for reaction time, short time, middle time, start speed time, and elapsed time, and those align with the various intervals that, of course, it supports. So we've got a standard menu up here. Let's see if I can't get this thing to focus. This allows you to create scoreboards, which I'll show you in just a minute. Load and export configurations, and load and export driver databases, as well as there is the standard mode that we're in now, as well as a no time mode that takes away everything and just gives you winners and losers. And then we also have some diagnostic options for testing the sensors, etc., etc. And then, of course, once this thing actually is production ready, we'll have full documentation available on it, but none of that is ready to go just yet. Let's go over to the advanced settings menu so you can get an idea of what all you can configure in this system. I'm going to be referring to the tabs across the tops of these windows. On this particular one, you got main, sensors, time slips, scoreboard, and communications. So we'll start with main. And on the main, you can specify if you have a double red light or a double foul, who the actual loser will be, either first or worst, your choice. If you select first, then it will show you a double red light on the Christmas tree. If you select worst, it will only show you the worst red light. It'll actually show the other red light as a green light on the Christmas tree. That was originally a little bit confusing for some of our guys because we were using that last year, and then ultimately our local guys voted to go with the first offense being the worst. Next here, you've got some settings for the auto start. And of course, whenever I say auto start, what I mean is there is a delay, and a randomized delay with a minimum of this and a maximum of this. That whenever the starter presses, we'll call it the go button, to start the Christmas tree, this is a scheduled randomized delay prior to the tree starting to come down. The biggest value in this is being able to delay that a fairly significant amount, which I'll show you a good reason for that later on. And then the other thing is if you have instant green, that means that no longer can you wait to hear a button click or something like that. It's going to be randomized. So anyway, Sportsman amber length, pretty straightforward. That's a full Christmas tree. That means it's going to be 500 milliseconds per bulb length, per amber bulb length. And then, of course, Pro, we do 4/10, so that'll be 400 milliseconds. And then, of course, the run log, you can specify where that actually gets stored. This thing will not focus automatically, apparently. Gonna have to figure out what the deal is with that. But anyway, so these are all your sensor settings, and of course you can enable and disable all of them except for the guard beam and the finish line. You got to be able to have a guard beam and a finish line, or else the system doesn't work. But like I said, you can turn off for instance, the stage, etc., etc., etc. So that's useful so that the system's not complaining about not being able to see the individual sensors. But for our testing setup here, I do have all of the sensor pins hooked up, and this system is going to be compatible with a wide range of sensors, either NPN or PNP, as well as normally open or normally closed. You can set those in here. And then for the purposes of setting the speed traps, you can actually specify the locations of the sensors in inches. So of course 1584 is 132 feet. So if you don't have exactly 6 foot or 8 foot or whatever the range is between your speed sensors, between the speed sensors and the finish line sensor, should I say, to be able to calculate the finish line mile per hour, you can specify that in here so that the calculation is done correctly. Moving over to our time slip options, we do have 4 configurable lines on the time slip, 2 headers and 2 footer lines, so you can fill in information on that. And then I'll show you in just a little while that is configurable per class. Some of these other settings are configurable per class as well. Scoreboards allow you to have sponsor logos on the individual lanes, and I'll cover that a little bit more, but here's some settings for the scoreboards, and of course those are per class settings as well. And then over on communications, we've got our COM port for communicating with the timing microcontroller, as well as some diagnostic stuff and selecting the time slip printer. And then, of course, this says on track activation. I'll go into the details on this a little bit more later, but we do have 3 options for it, either disabled, single lane, or dual lane. So we will get back out of that. And just to show you here, I am going to press some of these buttons and show you, like for instance, if I press the left stage sensor or the right stage sensor, you can see that we get some indication on the Christmas tree there. Now, one of the functionalities on this is if you do have a situation to where somebody hits a finish line sensor and of course it's out of alignment, then the system, I'm going to just go ahead and do the right lane finish line sensor. The system will inform you that there is a finish line sensor out. It doesn't matter if you do the right lane or the left lane, it does the same thing. So as it's back into alignment, and that's only prior to the tree being activated. Obviously, if that was happening during the course of a pass, it would be tripped and give you an elapsed time. So again, from left to right, top to bottom, let's just look at some of the different functionalities. We've got a couple of different modes for starting the Christmas tree. We've got auto, full manual, and then on-track activation. Auto is meant for a situation to where you're going to have dual contestants dual competitors, both lanes being used. You can go ahead and stage, and if for instance I turn this on auto, which it is, and I go ahead and set this to go, as soon as I press this button, the tree comes down, and it assumes that it's only a single lane race because only one lane is activated. And then of course if I go through the process of activating the various, let's see here, let me just make sure I got the right ones going. I have to hit them all, I guess. You can see that we're getting some. Okay, so I activated all of the sensors for the left-hand lane, and we got some times, obviously. So let's just reset that. And then, of course, what the full manual does is, instead of waiting for a stage of either lanes or both lanes, it will actually go ahead and, I'm going to just click this. You'll see this. It just assumes that everyone is staged, regardless of whether the stage stage beam has been tripped or not, because everything starts based on the guard beam anyway. So that's a great option if you have like a grudge race or something and you want to give lengths. You can do that because you don't have to be in the stage beam to actually start the race. And then, of course, the on-track activation is with a remote starter switch, or two remote starter switches, depending on how you have it configured. So again, this center button here actually starts the race based on, let's just set this back to manual, based on the configuration on the left there. And then, of course, we have our advanced settings button. That's a secondary way of accessing that menu. As you might have seen, I reset the tree via this particular button here. This particular button here will clear all of the driver data out and make it so that you are ready to enter your first driver information for the left-hand lane, which brings us to our driver database. So the driver database can be manipulated a couple of different ways. As I showed you before, you can import, export, or restore to the defaults the driver database via, of course, its primary XML based file. Or you can directly manipulate the driver database within the program, including the previous dial-in, the name, and the car number. Or you can, like it says here, import and export that data to a comma delimited CSV file, or you can manipulate it in other ways, like clearing all the previous dial-ins like I just did. And then, of course, if you want to undo what you just did, you can revert the changes. Okay, so now if we go back to here, we'll see that we have all of the previous dial-ins. So, hypothetically speaking, if you start entering a number, you will get the appropriate numbers. From there, if you hit just the down button, you'll get into this menu and you can hit enter, and that will load all of the settings for that particular driver. As you can see down at the lower middle here, we have some settings for the tree type and the time slip configuration. One thing that's not immediately apparent is that we've got this class mode. So if we go to class mode, we're initially on the default settings, but let's swap over to, say, a 290 index. So as you can see, this is no longer able to be manipulated. You are stuck with a 290 index at this point for both lanes. Now, of course, you can manipulate this by editing the class information. You've got, again, across the top, main tree, time slip, scoreboard. Man, this thing is just terrible at focusing. Now you got, you can see the options here. You got class name, system mode, dial-in. Our dial-in, of course, this is if you want it to be a no-time class. Our dial-in is either going to be completely heads up, where you cannot under any circumstances put in a index or a dial in, and it's always set to zeros. For the dial in, you've got open bracket where you can set the dial in, or you've got fixed index, just like I just showed you, that 290. And then you set, if it is fixed index, you can set the index here. You can see that that option is not available on open bracket or heads up, but on fixed index you can manipulate that. And then you've got the double foul loser for this particular class. Then we've got some tree settings here. What tree type do we want? And of course those auto start settings, and then the tree ember length. For the time slip, we can specify for this particular class what their time slip settings are. If they are left blank, they'll use the default settings that are set on the main settings. Same thing's true on the scoreboard. If there's nothing set, then they will utilize the main settings. However, you can see that I have some stuff set here because we have sponsors for our 290 index class. So those sponsors actually get shown on our scoreboard whenever the class comes up. So let's not make any changes to that. I'll show you what the scoreboard actually looks like in this class. We can, right up here, we can create a new scoreboard. Let's identify the screen so you can see what that does. If you have like the 75-inch TV like we've got set up, it will show up as a screen number, and then you just simply come in here, and this was screen 2, so we'll use this center one that we're utilizing here. As you can see, we've got RBA Racing and H2O leak detection as our sponsors for our 290 class, and we have some different options up here. If you click on the upper left hand corner, that gives you the black variation in case it's easier to read in the particular lighting scenario that you have that way. And also we have a center one here, so if you do happen to need to flip-flop the lanes, you can do that. That puts the right on the left and the left on the right for whatever reason. And then if we look over here in the far right corner, that actually allows us to take this out of full screen mode as it is originally, so that we can close out of it. So let's see what else we got here. Again, new racers, you saw what that does. That clears everything out and gets you ready to select new racers. Let's see here. And so if we select a new racer, whenever I hit enter, it automatically takes me over to the other side, and I can hit enter again, and that takes my focus up to here. I could hit enter one more time, and that would start the race, or I could use the hotkeys that you see listed up here on each one of these buttons. F5 is the hotkey for this, so if I hit F5, boom, and of course it's running. All right, so we'll reset that. Now down here across the bottom, if we're in a situation where we're putting in our racer information, and say they swap lanes or whatever, you can do switch racers, and that will do just exactly what it says. It will switch the lanes of the racers. Once the race starts, if you do need to reset it for whatever reason, you can. I'll start the race. You can see that these two buttons are now available. So if something happens and you need to reset the tree, it's really simple by hitting reset race. Yes, I do want to do that. That resets it, keeping all of the racer's information that you previously had in there. And then if you want to end the race, and if one of the racers goes through the finish line but the other one hits the wall and is unable to continue, it may not give you a win light, so you can hit end race, and that will actually give you a win light if somebody has crossed the finish line. Now at the moment nobody's crossed the finish line for this particular scenario. So anyway, let's keep going. So we've got a run log functionality, and the run log gives us just exactly what it says. It gives us, we can go back and look at races from previous dates or the current date, whichever the case might be. and it keeps track of all the specifics that would be printed on a time slip. And on the right hand side here, if you select one, you can actually reprint a time slip. Yeah. You can also look at the raw data that is coming out of the let's see here, where did I put it? You can look at the raw data that's coming from the timing controller. So if oh, you know what? Let me just go back over there and show you this, because this is a little more. I'm just going to do a quick run here, just so that you can actually see what I'm talking about here. So let me just go through the whole process. All right, so disregard the fact that this has got zeros at the end. It's due to the polling frequency of the automated setup. But if we hover over each one of these numbers, we can see the raw output from the timing controller. So we see that we're getting 3 microseconds added to each one of these. So it goes from 10 to 13, from 7 to 10 to 13. So it's taken about 3 extra microseconds for the automated controller to, of course, do everything that it needs to automate this run. So anyway, you can, if you want or need to for whatever reason, see the raw output, and you see that you get some extra. You actually get 2 extra digits. So if all the digits are the same and there's some question, like in the case of a red light or something like that, you can go to the next digit, and that's exactly what the system will do. If all the digits are identical on a double red light, then it will go to first to finish. Let's see here. We've got a big print time slip button, and that does just exactly what you would expect it to do. And again, there is the current version that we are on. So if you have any questions or comments or suggestions for functionality, please reach out to me. My email address is me@jonathanthompson.me, or you can hit us up on the judgetiming.com website or the Finish Line Judge Facebook page, and that's facebook.com/finishlinejudge. Everybody have a great day.